Good morning, everyone. I'm Dennis Oliver Schmidt. I think I know everybody in here. Wonderful you could join us. At the tail end of the term. I hope you're not too exhausted. And first of all, let me welcome Katharina Spuka, who has joined us from Germany as an intern for the next 3 months. So you will see her when you enter the center in the next couple of weeks. So Katharina, welcome. Also officially here, this round, you will meet some of these lovely individuals throughout the next weeks. But a special welcome today to Barry Ambers and Randy Cook. Thank you so much for joining us. You'll be introduced by Matty in a second, but it's wonderful that you could take the time and be here today. So thank you very much and welcome to the Center for Global Studies. But the real star of the day, Matty Cervantes, let me introduce her, and you lead us then through the proceeding, and also with it led acknowledgement. Jerry will do this for us. So many of you will have met Matty Cervantes over the past couple of weeks, and you can see here she comes with a wealth of experience and talent to us with the background in psychology, psychotherapy, and art therapy, and that has in a way set the agenda both for the practice and the education now as a PhD student at UVic, thinking about how you can combine these things, community-based, art-based research, and trying to combine this with indigenous worldviews, in particular with respect to issues of planetary health. And so it's on an individual basis, in practice, but also as a political issue about planetary health, thinking through art and indigenous worldviews. And I'm really glad to hear a bit about this today, Matty. So Matty has been a PhD fellow at the Center for Global Studies and has enriched our community with lots of wonderful ideas. And with this, I already hand it over to you and to introduce our elder guest, the next step. So thank you for doing this and bringing our distinguished guest today to the center.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I don't want to speak because Jerry is going to speak first. But if you want to know more about Jerry, I invite you to feel your heart, and you can get to know from heart to heart. If you want also to put some information in your mind, you can read this. You can learn more about her also by being in relationship, because that's how we can really build meaningful relationships with ourselves, with the land, with our people, with community, and with our elders. And it's for me a great honor to have met Jerry since I arrived to Victoria maybe 6 years ago, and being in relationship basically since I arrived to these lands. And I started very simultaneously my own relationship with my new self as an immigrant in these lands, my relationship with the land, and a relationship with a very meaningful elder for me. Thank you, Jerry.
I think we can start maybe by breathing together. And so I'll guide you to so just put your harmony on the ground. And this is going to be breathing in 4 counts, and then holding 4 counts, and then breathing out through your mouth. And if you can, make a sound out for those 4 counts. Okay. So take that breath down into your belly and breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. One more time. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. If you feel ready, just come back and open your eyes. I would like to give thanks for the ancestors and the people of the Kwangan and Wasanish territories. I also would like to acknowledge the beauty of this land that we are so privileged to work and live on. I also want to acknowledge the endless work that the people of the Kwangan and Wasanish territories, the people that continue to take care of this land, even amongst all the industrial buildings and ways of extracting and changing. They do it very quietly and humbly. And I really would like to acknowledge that from October until the spring, they do their ceremonies. And they don't, with great inconvenience at times to the rest of the world, they continue to do their ceremonies. And I want to acknowledge the strength of their spirits, the strength of their ancestors, to have them so close to the urban setting to continue to do their ceremonies. Because their part in these ceremonies is what holds the balance in this world. And so they do their part and they take it very seriously. So I really would like to acknowledge them for that today. And I would also like for each and every one that is here, the original people from wherever you come from, you have your own ancestors, you have your own spirit world. And I would like for each and every one to acknowledge that, to acknowledge your ancestors, your spiritual beings, because in the many, many years, we have survived many cataclysms. And the fact that you are sitting here today is because your ancestors helped you survive to be here today. That's the strength of your ancestral lines. So I just would like to acknowledge everyone's ancestors in this room today. And to remember that we began millions of years ago as one people, and through the many changes, they were all separated. And now this is a very painful process of returning back to that oneness. So these are some of the teachings from some of our Indigenous people in the world. So, and I just would like to leave that there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. So grateful for your words and your generosity of sharing your wisdom. So today, and I want to acknowledge that I want to say, kind of like almost like a disclosure. I will bring myself fully as I am to this talk. So that means that sometimes I may bring some sense of humor, but I promise you it's a serious topic. And I will talk about different things. And for me is very clear, and I hope it's not confusing for you, but there will be time to have a dialogue and clarify things. There are different elements, but I will start by sharing a couple of projects that I'm not in my earliest stage of my doctoral program. I'm in my third, almost fourth year, but I am in my earliest stage of the field work. And so right now it has been all about envisioning the project and writing grants to make the dream possible. And it has been before that a lot of community engagement, a lot of dialogue with community members. And as part of that, we created a cohort part of Global Pax Collective, in which 8 Indigenous artists are part of this cohort. And I will talk more about that. And we have 2 members here, and that just like feels so great for me, which is where Jerry and Randy are part of this cohort as well. And I want also to say that everything I've been speaking about, it's a community effort. I'm voicing something that has been co-created, co-visioned, and it's not just a group of people of 10 or 20. It has been more than that, institutions, organizations, years. And so just to acknowledge also and offer gratitude to my supervisors, Astrid Brussel, Denise Cloutier, John Dres Miles, and Simon Carroll and Carmen Rodriguez. It's a big committee. So today I'm going to speak about 2 main projects. Those are the titles of the projects. You may know CHRC and CHR. And they are around planetary health. And it's in coordination with communities such as the Global Pax Collective. The Global Pax Collective is an international group of creative artists, scientists, activists, educators, creative humans around the globe with the mission of promoting peace and healthy human development through the arts. And Global Pax Collective is seeking to integrate and celebrate diversity while acknowledging the importance of peace and planetary health. I was thinking about bringing a lot of information about why planetary health is important, but I know many of you know the threats that we are in the environmental challenges of climate change, human-induced climate change, or climate injustices, environmental racism. But I think it's important to be on the same page around what planetary health is, because for some of you, may be a new concept. Maybe yes, maybe not. But planetary health is an approach that considers the interdependence between the elements and living beings, plants, animals, including humans, emphasizing the importance of cultivating a positive ecosystem to support the flourishing of all forms of life. And this term, academic term, came in an article in 2015, but we need to recognize that these concepts and these worldviews have been there for many years, especially in indigenous communities. So I was already working before, I was already working with these ideas before finding this terminology, but when I found it, I was like, oh, there is, and I want to be very honest, there is, a concept that it's validated by academia and has the credential and its implications, and that's going to help. But then it was very hard for me to hear my reflection and how I was already I was working with indigenous worldviews and trying to find this validation. It's a very it was a hard thing to realize as a doctoral student. And I think sometimes we find ourselves as members of academia balancing in between 2 or more words, especially as a BIPOC person and with indigenous background as well. So then I start reading, like, is there anyone working with planetary health from indigenous worldviews? Or everyone is like these white scholars discovering something new, so innovative, and wow. And so, and I'm being a little bit sarcastic, of course. And then I was like, I found this article, the Planetary Health Framework allows for an integration of new paradigms and bring new perspectives together. And then I started to find more literature around planetary health with the participation of indigenous communities or indigenous worldviews. But then I think part of my problem, but also part of the beauty for me in the journey of academia, I want to do it all. And it's a problem because research is about narrow layers, go there, get to the point. And I'm like, but arts base is important. Hey, but the spiritual component, you cannot take it apart. And so in indigenous worldviews, totally understand this unity of concepts and holistically perspectives. And so I feel very comfortable in that realm. But when I come to the other word, between words, I was saying these struggles, the struggle comes. But then again, I found an arts-based paradigm that was given a space in academia and scholarly rooms for doing those integrations. And so along with my supervisors, with community, with myself, because I'm more than one when I'm working. It's like Matty and Matildita. And so arts-based paradigms and indigenous worldviews are at the roots, but are also the lenses, the theoretical frameworks, and the compass. So I was telling Jerry, I need to remind myself many times, what's the heart of this? What's the soul of this? And so that's when I bring the compass. And it's always like indigenous worldviews, arts-based paradigm. And so I say I'm not going to touch a lot in the sad stories and the struggles of human-induced climate change, but as part of the planetary health framework, we need to understand that without a healthy planet, we cannot ensure healthy humans. And there are other layers that are also very attractive for me around the social justice approach, the oppression that is shared. And when I find in my readings, in my lived experience, how the land has been oppressed, but how also the BIPOC woman bodies, and maybe also, there is a social justice aspect that it's very clear for me, but maybe not for everyone. And that's kind of scary. And so the climate justice aspect connects with the climate crisis to the social, racial, and environmental issues. And we need to understand how these layers are part of them. Now I want to move a little bit to why Mexico, why Canada? But before doing that, again, the paradoxes and the struggle of dancing in two stages and between two worlds. It's hard for me to present our cohort as like, we're coming from Canada, when they have their own nations, they have their own territories. And I think some of them in the cohort share some territories, but not all of them. They're actually from many territories. So it's not it's a long presentation if I go, and I think we need to start honoring that. But that explains also in my own reflection, and I want to share it. Of course, if we say Canada, we simplify. And that's exactly what has been happening by taking out the indigenous worldviews. We have been simplifying, creating categories, making it simpler, homogenizing things. And then we go quickly, faster, bigger. But then that's when the soul gets lost, right? Because then it's just like it. And then, so I say, like, how am I gonna resolve this? I don't have the answers. But politically, when I go to the embassy, and I want to incorporate it later more on and on, especially as the field work and the relationships will be more in practice. I will share with you the bio of each one of the artists so you can get to know their nations and their stories, because I think the strength is in the uniqueness that everyone is bringing. And their identities. So then whenever something, we need to admit someone maybe.
I got an window.
Thank you. Mexican Canada, then that is the logo of Global Pax Collective. I want to make a quick note. Caroline Victor and Deb Silver from Chilliwack, they came to Baja in one of our pilot artistic residences 2 or 3 years ago. And originally the logo was just the whites, like the circle and the 3 dots, and they added the turtle. I didn't know how meaningful that was. And I have been, and I still am unveiling many things as I am having more conversations with elders. I was in Mexico and they were like, oh yeah, our brother, they're excited to welcome our brothers and sisters from the north because we are all in this, at the back of the turtle. And in the Anahuaca, from Canada to Chile, is the civilization we used to share and we were one family. And then I heard from DeAndre the story of from Anishinaabe, and then also from Lindsay from the Iroquois. It's a little bit of differences, but lots of similarities. And I was like, oh my God, the cultural exchange is already happening. But around all of these things also, where there is as Jerry was saying, there is maybe a painful process to come back to the unity, which I think is part of the process that I'm interested as well in research, peace building. We need to come into the peace building between humans and non-humans, histories, the land, the lands, and all the background. So Mexico and Canada have a collaborative work that has been like with trades, politically, diplomatic, but they have a document called Mexico-Canada Action, and they have 7 pillars. All the 7 pillars are in alignment with the projects that we are proposing, and especially the climate change and public health component. So what are you doing, Matty? Thank you for sharing all of that, but what are you trying to do? We together are trying to do a cultural exchange where a group of indigenous artists and perhaps other cultural community members who may not be part of this cohort, but they may also join us. But mainly this cohort of 8 indigenous artists will come to Mexico in April next year to be welcomed and hosted by elders to get to know the land, the waters, the tradition, the culture, the spirits. And then that ideally, in my ideal world, it's happening with the SSCHR grant. And then next fall with the CFUV grant, we can have another exchange where the travel will be the Mexican delegation to come to these territories and work with the local communities in partnership with Awi'nakola Foundation. And I will talk about more about that and see the priorities in terms of the environment, of the emotional and spiritual, mental health that we have been struggling in, and what are we sharing in this broader sisterhood. So just to quickly give an example of the model that we have already for April, I mentioned April next year. Those are the potential dates. There is an agenda already that I will, just for you to keep a look if you want, you can pass it if you want. What is going to happen in those 7 days, because I cannot go into detail, but basically there are 2 big components. A summit will be organized exclusively for this cultural exchange. And on one hand, we will have artistic, spiritual, and cultural activities at the Corazon de Colibri. And it will be indigenous led by Panama Francisco Nehuayolotolio, who will be guiding the spiritual art and cultural activities with the group along with local hosts. Then we will have an academic and scientific component where we are already co-developing a curriculum integrated with a UNITAR-CIFAL certificate, and where we will have different mentors, including Maeva Gautier and Nakata, who are part of the Knowledge for Change Consortium, a global initiative of the UNESCO shared in community-based participatory research that we know because it's at home for the people of the Center of Global Search. So the Mexican hosts are Elsa de la Paz, Salma, and Francisco, and we will be in the territories of the Guaycuras, Cochimíes, and Pericues, which is the area of La Paz, Baja California, Sur Mexico. But importantly, Francisco is bringing knowledge also as a shaman and medicine man from the Huichol tradition. And both of them, Elsa and Francisco, are knowledge keepers of Anahuaca traditions and worldviews. And Salma has been our star in the Global Pax Collective, always helping with translation and with so many things. And we are so grateful for her continuous work for more than a decade, voluntarily. The photo is in one of the, you see the fruit? It's so good, right? Fresh fruit, soon. And that's Elsa in one of the Anahuaca New Year celebrations with the abundance of the corn and the diversity of the abundance offerings from Mother Earth. And in Panama, Francisco was leading a Temazcal in that photo that day. And so the site where we will be doing the spiritual work, it's the arts and culture is at Corazon de Colibri. Oh, oh, there you go. As I have been saying, this work contains so many collaborations, advice, guidance, time, everything. These are just some of our collaborators currently. Some of them are part of the SSCHR, others are part of the CFUV. And I just want to highlight, in particularly, open space has been very important for the arts-based component because we are hoping to have at the final stage after the cultural changes to organize an art exhibition to disseminate the information and the discoveries and the knowledge, the learnings, the lessons from the exchanges through different mediums of arts. Because, oh my God, if you are taking out around, and I will pass now this, if we can pass it this way, the bios of the artists, they are terrific. Some of them are dancers, painters, Rebecca is a great singer from opera, indigenous person singing in opera. She's just like, I will say a word. She's a badass. And then we have Lindsay De La Ron, and then we have Alex, and then we have Brianna, and on and on. And all of them are gonna, in their own way, what do we do when we do research, right? We document that information and then we disseminate it. They will do it from their own indigenous worldview and with the medium of their art. I think that's such a great offering for the world. And so I'm interested in a publication perhaps, but I'm more interested and excited about the art exhibition, to be honest. And this couldn't be possible with the support of Open Space. And Open Space has been not just putting the interest and the willingness, but also part of the budget. For all the community engagement that we have been doing, they have been also contributing financially. And that's something important because there is a phrase, right? Put your money where your mouth is, something like that. So we're very grateful for Open Space. And of course, the partnership with Awi'nakola, you will learn more about it through the works of Randy Cook directly. But there are so many good overlaps and great intentions that we have around research, land-based, arts-based. And so we are hoping to do a work with the communities that Awi'nakola will guide us for the CHR particularly, because they will have a very key role as community a community partner role. And if you are familiar with the CSR, sometimes those roles play also an important aspect of the submission of applications. So very, very grateful with Awi'nakola, and the work they are doing is amazing. So it's important, and everyone is contributing something. The Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions supported us with a podcast series that we are gonna launch today, kind of as a soft launch. Doesn't matter that word. Today. Yeah, and I was talking about community engagement sessions. We have had many since the summer at Open Space, but we had one last October here at the center, also supported by the Center of Global Studies and by PICS. And I think that's your hand here. Yeah, and that's what it is.
No, I don't wear plaid very often.
No, there's someone wearing plaid.
That's Rebecca. That's Rebecca. And we, the dates are mine. It was a great session. And my intention as a good researcher was to let's come up with the research questions together. And we had guided by Miriam and I forgot her name. The other person, oh my God, she will kill me. Okay, if you're there, I love you. So we did such an important work with the arts to try to reflect about those research questions, potentially, which can be. But honestly, the reflection was like, why we need to bring questions and why we need to do it the way academia wants and why academia don't get maybe a fit with us. And it was a great conversation of more processes and how can we bring the spirits and the connection to the land and the intuition to the work. But how do you explain that, right? The intuition, the spirits. And so it was a very rich conversation. And so here we are in the photo. I can't forgive myself. Can I take a pause for a moment?
Sure.
Natalie.
And Rebecca says that's her name in the picture.
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so we have been doing a lot of work to be where we are right now. Collaboration is important, honoring the community base, not as a theory, but as a real practice. It's challenging because time, because budget, because patience, because different styles, because the nuances of ideas, because many things. But that's where the richness is. And so I don't wanna lose that, even if it's longer or more expensive or whatever, because it's rooted at the heart. Working together, we can decolonize the concept of planetary health. We can bring the global relevance to the topics such as the implementation of the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which now is law in BC and Canada. And our projects contribute to advocacy work for climate action and climate justice. Also, our projects can elucidate pathways for peace building and highlight Indigenous teachings on the spiritual relationships and the stewardship of the environment, and the interconnection, the kinship that exists for climate actions that can serve us for political interventions, for arts-based interventions, for our daily lives, for the lived experience. And I have been listening to many that we have been surviving many apocalyptic moments already. So let's keep it up. I want to share with you now, because I need to stop talking soon. And then our friend Randy will share some important aspects of Awi'nakola. The podcast will be ready soon, but I couldn't get the link right now because they are working on the distributing in the major platforms, including Spotify, Apple, and it will be also over terrestrial airwaves with CFUV here, which is our campus community radio. But I'm showing you the first two episodes, the guest speakers that we have, and these two have been mainly supported by PICS, and we are hoping to just continue because there is so much generosity of knowledge of everyone and great stories because they are like storytellers by nature, so it's beautiful. So this is the teaser for the podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. It's in 3 minutes. It's so like ay.
We experience loss of biodiversity, and including human well-being and lives are now threatened by the environment and the impact of human beings on this environment. I think since colonization, we've been living in a way as a civilization, or as the human race in general, in a way that's very disrespectful to Mother Earth, and we're seeing the devastating, almost now irreversible effects from that. Various effects of climate change. Glaciers in some of our home territories are starting to melt. The salmon, which was just one of our biggest forms of sustenance and one of our biggest food sources, are being affected. Everything in the ocean is being affected by different forms of pollution and things like fish farms and industries and so on and so forth. And it's just really sad to see, The things that we eat come from the earth. The air that we breathe comes from the earth. The water that we drink and we rely on comes from the earth. And so when we poison these things, it can lead to really poor health outcomes from a physical sense, but also we need to think about planetary health also from mental health perspectives and spiritual health. I love using arts-based tools because it's such a creative way to engage with people. It really meets them where they're at. This concept of climate solidarity kind of emerged for me, of like when you bring different communities together from different contexts, but they are exchanging, learning from each other, and really building those relationships. And it's been quite powerful, and
teaching each other how to play the instruments and realizing that a lot of it was the same. So there is some kind of a human dynamic and connection that was there. And I just think that they're very powerful to come together and listen to people whose experiences are different, no doubt about it, but very much the same. So there are some grounding principles, and just to be able to make that local global and vice versa, I find extremely powerful. When you are torn away from your culture, when you are marginalized and placed on the periphery of political discourse, when you are told that your worldviews don't matter and that you had best assimilate into broader predominant society, that also does a lot to harm your health. There's the destruction of the earth, colonization, land exploitation, land as a resource, land to conquer. We forget that there's a parallel duality that's happening simultaneously, which is resistance and resilience and healing and family generational transmission of knowledge being passed down, and people are still living off the land, and people are still fighting for the land, and people are still here.
Powerful, and it must summarize also those powerful voices, lots of things that I have been trying to share with you, but it's very hard to make justice to all the people and the voices and the energies and the wishes, the dreams, the struggles, the pains. It's a lot. So I hope you get a little piece of what we're trying to share today. And I wish you can follow the podcast maybe through the newsletter we can share it later as soon as I get the link. And keep supporting the work of these amazing people, because all of them are doing important work in their communities. They are leaders, and taking the time to get together for this project has been such an honor for me, but it also brings a lot of relational responsibility. And so it's yeah, very honored and almost like very powerful, not almost, it is very powerful to have all these powerful people at it's like almost like the movies, when you have like the superheroes, at the same table or something like that. I feel sometimes like that. Or like the council, right, of experts. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. If you want to do a research project about, I don't know, that if you're going to the space, you take the best people to come in your spaceship. And if you want to research, like, okay, I'm going to invite the expert in biology, the expert in geography, the expert in that. And I feel we have kind of come up to something like that. And as I expressed also, I'm very grateful for everyone, including the BIPOC members of Global Pax Collective who are here in Canada, including Tembi, who is here right now, and that I'm very, very grateful, because her expertise in storytelling, theater, but also her lived experience, it's gonna contribute a lot, and it's contributing already. And your presence here with all the hanging there. But I wanna, can we skip that one and go to the next, please? The next, yeah. And then maybe the next. Because I would like to pass the the energy to Randy, who is a heritage chief of the Mansali Nation and a member of the Awi'nakola Foundation. And he has been also a professor here at the University of Victoria. He's an artist, he's a father, he's a friend, he's a human being, and he's also very generous. And I'm grateful that you're here and to share with us about Awi'nakola and all your thoughts about this collaboration and the potentials. Thank you.
Ila kesta okla, sisako. Ila kesta nasimium, nuba makula, yashin lachamam tegila. Pakwa kiwoken. In English, my name is Randy Cook. I'm a hereditary chief from the Mount Tegila. We're one tribe within the 16 tribes that make up the Kwakwaka'wakw on the northern tip of Vancouver Island. We're also the only tribe that had our title removed. So we're working very hard to reclaim a lot of our land and spaces. And a lot of the work that we do is really around not only reclamation, but also regeneration, restoration, bringing our people back home. So my story is that I'm a hereditary chief, and I took on a position that was my grandfather's when I was 29. And it wasn't a decision that I had a choice of. It was a decision my grandmother said, you don't have a choice, this is what you're doing. And I had to learn very quickly what that meant. And as I started to learn about the responsibilities of holding a hereditary position, I started to recognize that these are ancient names that have been passed on from time immemorial, and that we have an obligation and a role to protect Mother Earth and also look after our communities and our resources. And these were the obligations of our forefathers before us, before colonization. So as I started to get back out into our traditional territories, I started to see the impacts of resource extraction expanding faster and faster. And as I started to have conversations with our elders in our communities, such as our elder Jerry here, I was very grateful to always be next to, there are stories that we're hanging on to, the stories that were hung on to by our elders. And when we would ask, their personal stories in relationship to their homes, the last memories they had was probably between, birth and 5 years old before they were extracted to residential school. So bringing the elders back to the land was something that we had to navigate very carefully because we didn't want to trigger our elders and bring back any sort of trauma through this act. But what we found when we brought elders back is that they brought their grandchildren with them, and they started to tell stories about what they remembered of being on the land. And they would talk about how pristine the land was and how their grandfathers and grandmothers looked after the land and how they harvested and how they used these winter villages and summer villages. And there were beautiful stories that began to revitalize within their grandchildren, where now today their grandchildren are asking, how do we reclaim these spaces? So I took that very personally. And as I was getting out into our traditional territories, I was an advocate. I was fighting to stop industry. I was angry with logging. I was angry with fish farms and all of the things that were decimating our land. But it was that sense of hope that started to give me a sense of revitalization also when I heard the younger children saying, how do we move back and reclaim these spaces and just live here? Then I knew that I had a bigger responsibility in front of me. So that was really the beginning of the work that I started to do, not only to really understand my own identity, you know, as being Kwakwaka'wakw and being a hereditary chief, but also thinking about 100 to a 500-year plan moving forward. And what does that mean? So in doing that kind of work, we have to get out and look at the land and do land assessments. Therefore, we're pulling from degradation reports, working with a lot of very educated people who understand not only how, like, policy within the province and government, but also scientists who are also looking for new discoveries and how we can regenerate and also, you know, work out different programs and how we can map, you know, projects moving forward that would contribute again to our 100 to 500-year plan as Indigenous people and reclaiming the land. So that was the beginning of Awi'nakola Foundation. I found that in helping our people, the Montegila, we don't have any resources. We're not an acknowledged nation under the Crown, therefore we don't have access to funds. We have never made, nor have we agreed or consented to any agreements around resource extraction in our territory, but it's happening very fast. It's still moving right now, very quickly, and we're doing everything that we can to get into a place where we can file injunctions so we can slow it down and essentially get back on the land where we can, again, do our own assessments and then tend to the things that need to be restored for, again, you know, for our future. And again, so the Awi'nakola Foundation is a unique organization. We aren't under federal or provincial mandate. We spent a lot of time designing and developing our own governance. Our governance contributes to our potlatch law. So going back to our value system prior to colonization, looking at the way we lived on the land, but also looking forward and utilizing friendships who are scientists that can assist in the process. So we also have a community of artists. So it's artists and scientists working together. And myself as an artist, I met Suzanne Samard through my own research and brought her into my own territory. And as we were in the Great Bear Rainforest, I said, you know, like, let's just walk, let's just be together in the forest and let's just listen to the land. And as she began to put her hand into the soil and pull out and identify different, you know, just looking at mycelium and these different fungi and looking at the health of soil, the question that came to be was, how can art amplify the message of science? But also, how can art message or amplify the message of science under Indigenous value systems? So therefore, looking back at our value systems as Kwakwaka'wakw people, listening to our elders and those stories, but also taking those values into a place where we could be the act of reconciliation and saying and recognizing that, yes, Canada is occupied by a multi, you know, it's very diverse today, and how do we celebrate that as Indigenous people? Well, we can celebrate that by celebrating our value systems, these values that stem beyond these colonial constructs, but beyond the Constitution of Canada, where our country that we're in today was established on resource extraction. So for us as Indigenous peoples, we need to pull the rest of Canada out of that perception also to understand that we need to be a country of regeneration. We need to be a country that is going to be working together and honoring Indigenous peoples, while we as Indigenous people honor all of those that come and be a part of this land too. So we say, you know, in the work that we do, that reconciliation really is the act, it's not the talk. It's the act of working together with one sole purpose, that we are here to heal Mother Earth and celebrate diversity, and that we can walk hand in hand and allow ourselves to heal as Indigenous people, you know, allow ourselves to connect with our land and tell our stories, but also share in those stories that we are beautiful people, that we do have a beautiful culture, that we do have a governance that is ancient from time immemorial, that was passed on to us by these natural laws. We've upheld these laws for thousands and thousands of years, and we were able to sustain because of that. So when we get back to these old village sites, we look at clam beds that have been completely decimated due to fish farms, you know, due to other extraction. We look at the impacts of root gardens, where we would once be able to harvest and feed thousands and thousands of people feasting and potlatching through winters, where we can't even go and like harvest from those areas anymore until we do these land assessments. So therefore we can't bring our children back to these spaces and allow them to just naturally live and be on the land again until we do this work. So we started an organization, Awi'nakola Foundation. Awi'nakola comes from the word that our elders use. We have no word for environment. It's not our thing. And like, I just want to acknowledge too, Matty, that it's always interesting in education, right? Where it's like narrow in, PhD. Okay, what is your focal point? Whereas us as Indigenous people, we don't compartmentalize anything. Nothing is siloed, it's all integrated. Everything is moving. So when we're bringing our, you know, children to the land, it's not to understand this is how trees communicate, these are medicinal, these are how we harvest. It's really about how we nurture our bodies and how we care for things and how we respect things. And that is the generosity that is spread to others. But those are the virtues we hang on to, and that's actually how we conduct ourselves. So when we talk about the word Mayahila, it means respect. And I asked my grandmother, I said, you know, we use this word Mayahila a lot, but what does it mean? She goes, I didn't hear it a lot when I was a little girl, she said, because it wasn't something that was said, it was the way we lived. It was really the act of living in respect. So Mayahila Kins Awi'nakola is the act of loving and respecting all living things on this planet. And that's what we want to be. That's what we want to embody with the work that we do. So we're bringing people in. So we have these Tree of Life gatherings every summer, and it's a gathering of artists and scientists on the land led by elders and community. Elders welcome us first, share in stories. We talk about origin stories first and foremost, because that's what's informed our relationship from the land. This is our very first moment where we started to think about governance. And when we built our first houses, it was in relationship with the natural environment. It was our forests. So therefore, our houses are the womb of everything that we have. It's our birthing place of gifts and ceremonies and rituals, just as the forest is always gifted everything. So therefore, we identify that as being female too. So when we do say Mother Earth, it is really deeply embedded in that reciprocity of love and nurturing. So therefore, as Indigenous people, we embody that. So therefore, for us as men, we have a bigger responsibility to protect that. So we created the Awi'nakola Foundation with a full board of matriarchs, and the matriarchs hold us as men, myself included, accountable to the relationships we build. So therefore, we won't work with other organizations who haven't breaking down those old frameworks to really elevate, you know, the balance and the responsibility and also the integrity that women hold when we're talking about Mother Earth, because it has been men who have destroyed this planet through handshakes and through, you know, deals. When we talk about capitalism, colonization is moving every single day, and these are the issues that we look at as Indigenous people. So for us to elevate our women and to put them in that place again to hold us accountable is to not only, is simply just to remember who nurtures us and who has cared for us, who has fed us, who loves us and shares and passes stories on, you know, and those things, those are the most important things that we have to remember when building communities. So sitting here this morning, again, thank you, Matty, for the invite, and thank all of you, you know, for also welcoming me, because as I'm sitting here, I'm constantly reminded of ceremony. And this is ceremony because we are in a circle and we're sharing and we're trying to find solutions forward. And I think we're not going to be progressive until we find ourselves in spaces like this where we can share openly and understand what our value systems are in order for us to be a healthier planet, therefore, you know, healthier human beings, because we all know the planet's going to be fine, but its humanity is suffering. You know, we're the ones who are destroying this planet, therefore we need to come together as one. So Awi'nakola is very much that. You know, it's a lot of work. We do a lot of programs on the land. We think about youth. We're thinking about development projects for communities so that they can be on the land longer, working side by side with scientists and learning about new methodologies so that they can become the stewards again. We're working on big art programs internationally. So we're working with, you know, a curator from Chicago. So we're looking at an international exhibition, hopefully like traveling, where we can share these applied methodologies, you know, and paired essentially with our values and our stories, but also in hopes that it will bridge relationships with other Indigenous people globally. And that's the biggest part, is art can do that. Art can be a vessel where we can share and bridge in the work that needs to happen, because we have teams that go to the UN. We just had a team at the Biodiversity Conference. So we are at those big tables, those big negotiation tables. But what I always come home with whenever, like I was in Montreal at the Biodiversity Conference, when I came home, what really stuck with me was really just the simple stories from Indigenous peoples globally. When we're talking about goals like 30 by 30, and we're talking about making change, and we're talking about, you know, resisting resource extraction and looking for alternatives, you know, Indigenous people, well, before we even get there, you know, governments say we want to throw billions of dollars at this. And Indigenous people say, you know, it's really free, just allow us just to be on the land again. Just to simply allow us back in our traditional territories, in our spaces. We're going to cultivate, we're going to nourish, we're going to like nurture, we're going to caretake, we're going to simply just start doing all of the things that are going to contribute to, you know, a healthy climate, you know, a rich soil system, you know, sequestering carbon. We're in British Columbia right now at 2% of old growth forests. And we're fighting tooth and nail as Indigenous people, but Canada yet refuses to have conversations with Indigenous people around that. They're looking at more under their exportation agreements and, you know, enforced under those. And again, talking about South America, I mean, I can't sit here without acknowledging that Canada has 70% of interests, investments in resource extraction in South America. So we as a Canadian country also are very responsible for a lot of the damage that is happening. So the work that I'm really excited about to share with Matty and being a part of her team is to bring the work we're doing as a foundation and to bring the stories of our community also to pair and build a bigger community, you know, and to also just embrace Matty and to welcome her into our communities, you know, to come and, you know, meet with our elders and listen to our stories. And again, that comes, you know, the invitation's also for everybody, you know, because that again is the reconciliation. It is the healing that needs to happen. But I know I am on a timeline and I was glimpsing over, but I think that's a thorough intro of some of the work that we do. And again, Gila Chasa, it's really for allowing me to be here and share.
We are very lucky. We're very lucky to have Jerry and Randy and also Andrew. Yeah, you're also from those communities where the late and I have been reaching out to you also to say, hey, we have so many things in common here. Indigenous law, I think, can bring a very interesting perspective to the team. So I'm happy you're here too, and Randy and Jerry as well, and everyone. I think we have half an hour for questions and discussion. I just wanna, before we do that, give a little gift, if that's okay.
No problem, yeah.
Avalon is something that West Coast communities, we share a lot. And also these are from Baja, made by artisans there, and it's a cactus. And I love how the desert can also bloom flowers there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
And
you can see how precious these are in our territories, all up and down the coast.
and I think,
Yes.
thank you, Jerry. We were kind of saying, right? And this is, it's a basic, based on Oaxaca's artisans also. And I love hummingbirds. It's not hummingbird, but it reminds me hummingbirds and Caminos con Corazón. And also, like, this is for you. Can I?
Amazing.
And then you have all the like woman, matriarch, feminine energy. Because you want to be, you have it.
Thank you.
I love you both.
Love you too. Thank you. Amazing. Weave that into my ceremonial regalia.
It has place for the hands, but let's see how it goes. There you look.
Jerry, Randy, Matty, thank you so much for bringing all your knowledge and your passion to these rooms. Who would like to start off in the conversation? Any questions or remarks? Yeah, it's amazing work you do, but I'm not even sure where to start.
I know where to start. First of all, Matty, thank you very much. That's really, really wonderful. And you will never know just what a huge impact this will have and who it will have an impact on. And I was extremely excited to know that Randy Cook was about to walk into the room today because I've never met Randy. However, when I began my research on museums and art galleries, I was at first becoming very, very disheartened that these were spaces that told the stories of men, mostly white men, over and over and over in painful detail. And then one day I went to the art gallery of Greater Victoria, and there was the most extraordinary exhibition there, and it was called Urban Thunderbirds, Ravens in a Material World. And walking between worlds. And I actually have an image of it here because it had such a huge impact on me. Just it was clever, it was funny, it was poignant, and it visualized those notions of walking between worlds and the complexity that you were talking about, Matty, in terms of working in these different contexts and everything. And this was a visual of that. And it was a visual of colonialism, but it was a taking back. And it and it set me on a very different path of thinking that these institutions could be more than they were. So I just want to say thank you so much for that. I still look at it from time to time. It was spectacular. He ran around, well, he could tell you, he ran around with a mask in the Vatican. I think he got thrown out of the Vatican or something. Yes, I remember the story. And he's all over the place with this spectacularly beautiful traditional mask just in front of all these institutions, these patriarchal institutions, which are so powerful, and just took them down in one absolutely extraordinary image. So I just want to say thank you very much for that.
Can I share a little context?
Yes.
For those curious about that.
Yeah.
I was carrying a mask and I ended up in the Vatican. And as I was standing in the Vatican, me and my friend, we had a camera, and it was a split second, and it hit me. And it still actually is quite emotional. because I was standing in the place that tried to destroy and erase our culture and our identity. And when I thought about Catholicism and the power in Christianity, I put this mask on, and it was the first time a mask from our area made it into an institution as such. And I called it confronting the church and saying, we're still here. And as I put it on, security was, they were like, oh, everybody, and chasing. And I was like, I gotta run, otherwise I gotta escape my camera and the footage and the mask. And one was like, I think you went that way. The other one's like, and I was literally running around the pillars and made it out the door. And when I got outside, I just burst out in tears. I was just like, wow, like, not only were they still trying to, erase, like, it was just a moment, and we captured it, and I shared the photo in an exhibition, and it was called Confronting the Church. Yeah.
Stunning. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna speak from the heart because I think the silence right now is, it was a hard space. So I thank you, each one of you, for bringing this into conversations and the vocabulary and the work, and it's so aligned to what, I'm doing also. So just like Matty is talking about, like the vocabulary, and just seeing how the vocabulary aligns and how people are working together just gives me so much hope and encouragement and hope for the land and waters. And I'm just so grateful for this space, and also CFGS for providing this beautiful space for bringing us together. So thank you. Yeah, I'm speechless. There are, it's like this hard space I'm in that I can't even speak. So thank you.
I want to acknowledge also the people who is online. Thank you. Valerie Sales has been also very active with Global Pax Collective initiatives, and Nakata from is joining us also from Minnesota. Where are you, Nakata? Well, it's in the US. And my friend Jessica, and of course my supervisor Denise Cloutier is joining, I think, from Australia, and Maiva, who got a new job, also part of the mentors for the UNITAR-CIFAL, as well as Nakata, and Rebecca is part of the Global Pax Collective cohort as well. Hi, Rebecca. I was sharing your art medium as an opera singer. You will find out in one of the podcasts for her work and her reflections. And yeah, just like everyone who has been joining today, thank you. In person, online, and keep following our work. And I always ask, especially now in grant writing season, please pray for us. I mean it. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you all. I'm curious to hear more about the partners and participants in Mexico. Because I guess being here where we should be more aware of the local issues and what were described in terms of trying to reclaim land, get back out on the land, and so on. Can you tell us more about what's happening with folks in Mexico?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And I tried briefly to share about our host, Elsa de la Paz in Francisco, and the site of Corazón de Colibrí, where we will be having our ceremonies. But particularly the land of Baja California Sur is very rich in the abundance of nature and examples of resilience. And the Sea of Cortez of Gulf of California, it's also a place with so much biodiversity and has been known as the New Galapagos. And so I have been trying not to spoil many of the things that they will encounter there, because I want almost to be in the same way they will introduced with Elsa and Francisco with the land and the water and get to know it. But definitely there is an important rationale for me that I need to find a way to explain it in my document of why Baja and BC. The share of the West Coast, it's one regional aspect, and with climate change, things are becoming here more challenging. For example, the heat waves are coming, even new terminologies, the heat dome and the atmospheric rivers and floating and people displaced of their communities. And the ways the Canadian culture, in my point of view, from a new person here, feels like with poquito, it is a disaster. And that means it's part because I'm coming from a place with climate disasters happening part, like storms, hurricanes came often. We live in a desert, the water struggles are very real every day. And here there's so much water. And so the water aspect, for example, when I hear someone saying like, we are so worried because we don't have water. And I'm like, what? And I have been like, we don't have water there. But then I feel there will be in this exchange, we can get informed and share knowledge and resources of practices and ways to be resilient as things here will be more challenging environment as well. Yeah, I can say more things about the local people, the local environment there, the way also colonization has been shaping our culture in Mexico is very interesting, it's very mixed. The mestizo culture is the majority, and the indigenous identities are very strong in the mainland, but in areas like the peninsula, the syncretism with religion and the way we find indigenous knowledge is so in between, and it's very interesting and different. And I was speaking with friends for indigenous communities in Canada or New Zealand who were last in being colonized. They are the ones who are like very fresh in this warrior and defending and sharing and protecting. And for other communities 500 years ago, it's a different situation in terms of that. And I think that will bring also richness and remind. I don't know, there's a little bit of what I have been listening also from the community there in terms of the excitement to be with the brothers and sisters from the north and knowing like we're the same, but we have been here living colonization in a different way. And it impacts all of us in similar ways, but I think culturally, and the word that I have is the syncretism for Mexicans is very particular and is distinct for what is happening here. And so I think there could be lessons shared as well in those aspects. Yeah, I don't know if I did answer your question.
Thanks.
In different levels.
Imagine what might happen.
People identity. That's the thing we cannot spoil. Yeah, my supervisors, who I love so much, they keep asking me like, what's this, what that? I'm like, I don't know. That's the idea of research. We don't know. We will find out. But there is a type of urgency for you need to know. And yeah, but
Supervisors get nervous.
Yeah.
they're the best guidance I can have also in his work.
Our job.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. I agree with you completely that it's very deep what you're sharing. I was wondering about the organization we're talking about, that it has matriarchal structures embedded in it and how it works, and is it unique to your nation, or is it actually something that you observe has a success being implemented somewhere else because our society is so dominant on the patriarchal structures that it's so complex and so difficult to change? So it would be I'm grateful to hear out more about this.
It is unique in a sense that, like I say, we're from the Mount Tequila, and we're not recognized by the crown. We're not a band, so going and forward looking at, looking for opportunities where we can source funds to even do survey work or field work and community gatherings. There's no support because of that. So Awi'nakola Foundation is able to lean into philanthropic funding to be able to make that happen. But that's very new coming from our communities because we've been so dependent on band systems. So we have nations that are deeply embedded because of these agreements that have been made where they don't even know how to pull out of these agreements. So it's federally funded. So essentially our communities are employees of the feds. So to do something completely new, not only eradicates everything, it also creates a lot of fear because our people then are looking to constantly trust build. So when you're in a relationship with the government, it becomes dependent. And therefore, we know we can't trust the government, but at least it's consistent. And it's like a really bad relationship, It's like, well, no matter what, it's like you become dependent on that. So to sever those ties, nobody knows what that looks like. And nor does the government even want it. So to have an organization come in, not under federal or provincial mandate and building trust, the first question is like, well, where are those funds coming from? What do they want from us now? So now we have to decolonize philanthropy through the work that we're doing. So we spend a lot of time there meeting with donors and saying, if you're comfortable supporting the vision and being, not directing funds, not directing your intention, not coming in with an agenda, trusting the community's needs, and that what we do is like, under our laws, then, we can participate, we can, make that happen. So it's a journey in itself, to answer your question. Like we're learning every single day. So when you also introduce a board, Jerry was one of our first board members. So I was very grateful for that. That helped get things, underway. And when I first approached Jerry and I said, these are my intentions, we need to start with a board of matriarchs that are Indigenous before anything, because that's what's going to set the bar. So to introduce an organization of Indigenous matriarchs to an old organization built on, old frameworks led by men, especially in conservation, can be very interesting in how they perceive us, or if they even want to, work with us, because now, which I like, now they're in fear because now we're able to call out their old framework and say, well, you need to essentially dismantle everything that you've built on and reframe, your organization or whatever it might be to be in a place that is inclusive, especially embracing the values we talk about, which mostly means embracing, women, embracing women in these really big places where decisions are made. And I feel if we were to restore that balance, then we wouldn't be consistently focused on capitalism, that we would find ourselves in places with more regenerative projects. My hope. Yeah. So not a clear answer because we're growing and learning is the answer, like every day, like anything, right? But we're open. And I think that's the biggest part, is that we're open to learning. We want to work with communities. And that's why it's easy to be here today and share with Matty, because I believe in Matty's vision. I was like, oh, that's aligns with our values.
It's just a question, but it's pretty unique, you say.
So
Amazing.
just a quick update, I suppose, just due to lots of information support online, right?
Yes.
Lots of cards and.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matty, Jerry, and Randy. It was really very strong, what you passed on to us. But I would like to know, maybe could you talk a little bit more about how you're specifically working with children and youth? Because it's children and youth who are the most affected by climate change. And maybe I would like to hear a little bit more, and also working with children and youth and art is so inspiring, so creative, and so powerful too.
Yeah, thank you. For me, the intergenerational component has been very important to ensure that is happening. And we have different members from different nations. We don't have children and youth per se as part of the direct group, the first circle, but everyone has kids and grandchildren. And as Randy was saying, like, when they brought the elders, then the grandchildren came and also they were positively impacted by. And so even in the planning that we are right now for the visit to Mexico, some of the people is also saying like, hey, my daughter wants to come, my mom wants to come. And of course, we are family friendly, kids friendly, like, let's make it happen. And so I think organically it's already going there in a intergenerational family circle. And even Brianna has like a baby bear and Gordy, and I have been like, Brianna, your kid needs to come. It's a baby, well, kind of like 2-3 years. And then Alex McCullen has also kids and has been expressing that he wants to bring them. And so I think as everything, all is connected, and we shouldn't left out anyone. Like, as important as the children, important as the elders, important as the youth, the students, the world, like everyone has a role. And in this microcosmos community that we're creating, it's a representation of the macrocosmos. And so we are honoring all those relationships and different ages, stations. Everyone has something to learn and to teach. Like, children are teaching and they are also learning, and everyone is contributing and has an important role.
I think, we can gradually bring this to a close. And I think from the reactions here in the room and online, you see, your words have really strongly resonated with us. And I think they will stay with us as an inspiration. And we're gonna hopefully be part a little bit of your journey, Matty. It's exciting, and it's also the openness of this, right? And to think about what comes out, we'll see. But I think you all gave us a good, strong sense of how the arts in particular, right, can be, a very powerful tool to bring attention to urgent issues and also create community. That if you think about what moves us politically, it is about bringing people together right around crucial issues. And it's a task. It's labor intensive, as you know, right? And so all the, wonderful that you try to bring these funds, bring people on board and create, up and down the coast, these communities. It's beautiful to see. So thank you for involving the center in this endeavor, and thank you very much for you coming out today. It's greatly appreciated.
I want to say thank you. Thank you. Last year I got the fellowship and I was here for a few weeks or months, and then I got the loss of my brother and other personal stuff and health issues. And I was like, oh no, I won't be able to be fully as I'm envisioning. And I spoke with everyone and I was like, I'm just I have a big disruption in my life. Can we please pause it? And I think we were kind of shocking, and then they were very supportive and said, no worries, Matty, take your time, come back when you're ready. And then I came back, and I have been so welcoming and so supportive, and I'm very grateful, and I don't want to leave here, and I want to stay in the next term. I already got like the letter of support, so I'm staying here for a while.
Don't you care?
So I'm like, it's hard to find a community that resonates with the values and give you that like scholarly independence as well. Like I graduated from social dimensions of health, and now I'm in the interdisciplinary program. So by the nature of the interdisciplinary, I have been in every faculty already, in every school, in every center. And maybe in the religious one I haven't, but I have really been in many places, and this really feels very near, like to home in heart. So thank you, and for the patience. And when you are with families, the valleys and the hills, and the good and the bad, and the good mood and the bad. And I think me in all of those, and your compassion and acceptance has been a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's